My name is Gerald. Gerald Ashworth. I'm 82 years old, and I've been sitting in this chair for about 20 minutes now, trying to decide whether to start. I don't know who will watch this. I'm not sure it matters anymore. My daughter set up this camera. She thought it would be good for me to talk. She said it was like writing in a journal, only easier on my hands. Maybe she was right. I'm not doing this because I want anyone to feel sorry for me. I'm not doing it because I think I have something important to say. I'm doing it because there is a house, a white house with a green door on Clement Street, and I have not been back to it in 53 years, and lately I think about it almost every morning when I wake up. I don't know why now. Maybe that's just what happens when the years start to feel shorter than the memories. I grew up in a small city in Ohio, not the kind of place people write about or move to on purpose, just a place, streets that looked the same in every direction, a hardware store that smelled like oil and sawdust, a library that closed early on Fridays. My father worked at a plant that made parts for machines I never understood. He left early and came back late, and by the time I was old enough to ask him anything about his life, he wasn't really talking much anymore. I don't say that with anger. I used to, but not now. He was a quiet man who had probably once been something else, something more open, and life had just pressed it down. You could see it sometimes, late on Sunday afternoons, when he sat on the back steps and looked at nothing in particular, like he was listening for something that had stopped coming a long time ago. I didn't understand that when I was young. I understand it now. The house on Clement Street was my grandmother's house. Her name was Vera, Vera Ashworth. She was my father's mother. She was a small woman, not delicate, small in the way that some people are small but take up more space than people twice their size. She had gray hair she kept pinned up, and hands that were always doing something even when she was sitting still, folding the edge of her apron, turning a button over in her fingers, smoothing something that didn't need smoothing. She lived alone in that house from the time my grandfather died. I was 4 when that happened, so I have no real memory of him, until I was 26 years old. 22 years she lived there alone, and I saw her maybe a dozen times in all of that. I'm not going to explain that away. There's no explaining it, not really. I was young. I was busy in the way that young people are busy, which is to say I was busy with things that felt enormous at the time and that I can barely remember now. Work, friends, a woman named Patricia who I thought I would marry and didn't. Life felt like it was always just starting. The last time I went to that house I was 26. It was August, hot in the specific way that Ohio gets hot, heavy and still, like the air itself is tired. I remember I drove there alone. I don't remember why I went. I think there was some family matter, something practical, something to do with a document or a car or something that needed to be sorted out. I can't remember the reason. What I remember is the house. The green door needed painting. I noticed that. There was a small crack in the front step that hadn't been there before. The rosebushes along the side of the house had gotten overgrown. I remember thinking I should say something about the rosebushes, that someone should take care of them. I didn't say anything. Vera made coffee. She always made coffee when anyone came, even if it was the middle of the afternoon, even in the heat. I think it was her way of making time, of stretching a visit out, giving it a shape. We sat at her kitchen table. The kitchen had a particular smell. I've never been able to describe it exactly. Something like old wood and coffee and something floral. Not perfume, something quieter than that. We talked about ordinary things.
I don't remember what, the family, the weather, whether my father's back was still bothering him. She asked me about Patricia. I told her it hadn't worked out. She nodded in the way she had, not sympathetic exactly, just receiving the information without making it smaller or larger than it was. She asked if I was eating properly. I laughed. I told her I was. And then at some point I stood up because I had somewhere to be or thought I did, and I said I'd come back soon, and she walked me to the green door, and she stood on the front step, the cracked one, and she watched me get in my car. I waved. She raised one hand. That was it. She died 14 months later. January. A stroke, they said. She was in the house when it happened, alone, the way she was always alone by then. My father called me on a Tuesday morning. His voice was flat in a way I hadn't heard before. Not grief exactly, something older than grief, something that had been waiting. He said, "Your grandmother passed." I said I was sorry. He said, "Yes." That was most of the conversation. I went to the funeral. I stood at the graveside in January cold and looked at a casket and tried to feel something that matched what I thought I should be feeling, and mostly what I felt was unprepared. Not sad in the clean way, unprepared. Like someone had told me the story was longer than it was, and then it just ended while I was still waiting for more of it. After the funeral, there was a gathering at my uncle's house. People ate sandwiches and said careful things and went home. Someone mentioned the house on Clement Street, said it would need to be cleared out. I said I could help. I never did. I've thought about this a lot over the years. Not obsessively, not the way people describe being haunted, more like the way a stone sits in your shoe. You forget it for long stretches of time, and then you take a step a certain way, and there it is again. The green door, her hand raising from the cracked front step, the rosebushes, the lake with no name, my father's shoulders going loose on the road home, the letter in the box. I've carried all of it for a long time. I suppose now you're carrying a little of it too. I don't know what you'll do with it. Maybe nothing. Maybe you'll think of a door of your own. I don't know. I just wanted to say it out loud before I couldn't.